Hey, what's up, everybody? Video 44 coming to another video. All right. So, if I wipe my face, make sure I'm looking all right. Okay, presentable. I just got through watching the Boston Celtics press conference on Ime Udoka, and their tone is pretty much the tone I had in the previous video I made. It's really sad. It's really, you know, something that they have to handle with a lot of care. They had to be very vague, and they were open about that from the beginning of the conference. I honestly felt like they handled it very well, to be completely honest with you. From my perspective, based on what it is I have rolling around in my head, I thought they were okay. You know, I mean, they did the best they could with a tough situation. The one thing that I was curious about, and I think it's a learning thing for me, just in terms of what's best, Brad Stevens was in the position to co-sign, I guess, Brad Mazzulla, I believe is his name, is going to be the interim head coach for the year. And he has some things attached to his name with some incidents in the past that don't look as good for him as well. A domestic violence incident, I believe it was, where he allegedly choked a woman of some sort, and then another incident as well, where he had gotten into some type of a tussle during his college time or what have you. So these things happened many, many years ago, and it's been reported. And because it's been reported, you know, it's one of those situations where I'm wondering if it's really best for Brad Stevens to be the person who co-signs him. Even if he does, you know, because he said he believed in him, and he knows that even though these things happened in the past, that he believes he can lead men in that, he'll do a good job. I felt like that was a bad risk, or a very tough risk for Brad Stevens to take in regards to him being a professional in the NBA. And if for some reason something goes wrong with this gentleman's character, we're looking at two individuals that he quote unquote believed in that had went south. In this situation, you saw evidence of where it could. So what it would do in my mind is create some doubt for the gut, so to speak, of Brad Stevens. And it's like, if I'm Brad Stevens, I'm not going to want that on me. I would much rather the owner kind of put his faith in who it is that he employed, who happens to have these things attached to his name, that you plan on replacing someone who's this scandal is you know, got it going on, or is attached to. It's like you're replacing someone who's done something insubordinate with someone who's been, you know, who's had those issues in the past, and you got to answer questions. It's like, yo, if this guy makes a mistake, Brad Stevens is on the hook. The owner is the owner. He's not going to fall. It's not going to be a blowback if for some reason, you know, this guy makes a mistake. You know, it's like, okay, well, the owner made the mistake. It's going to fall back on the owner anyway. Why would Brad Stevens necessarily have to be the guy to say, this is my guy, I believe in him? To me, it just seems like that would just be better for Brad Stevens to not have to do that. It wouldn't hurt the owner at all to have to say that. So I don't know. I just felt like Brad Stevens probably should have had a conversation with the owner and asked him if he would be willing to say those things rather than himself. You know, so, even though from Brad Stevens' position as president, pecking order would say that it would be his job too, right? So it's right that he did based on the structure of things. But because of the presence of what's going on and what Brad Stevens would otherwise have to guard against in trying to get another job in the event that he moves on from Boston someday, if for some reason Brad does go left, something goes wrong with Brad, it's really, you know, that's all I'm saying. It just, to me, it looks as if it's going to look bad on Stevens. So that is ultimately what I have to say. Are both of their names Brad Mazzulla and Brad Stevens? I don't know. I might have that wrong, but either way, this is a situation where hopefully everything will go well for the coach, so that there won't be anything to even discuss in regards to his character. But there is a risk that you run when you replace him with Udoka during this situation. So that's pretty much what I took from that aspect of the press conference. I wasn't quite sure what was best, so very curious. I'm looking at it one way, but maybe it probably makes more sense to do it the structured way. So curious about it. But one thing I can say is, you know, when the details of the situation comes out, I will be very curious to know who was personally affected by what took place in this situation. Brad Stevens looked especially troubled to me. And that could be because he's under a lot of pressure. Obviously, it's the beginning of the season. He's the president of basketball operations. Obviously, now people are looking at him to coach the team, and he's finally gotten out of that circumstance. He probably doesn't want to coach anymore. It's probably a lot of things going through his head, the circumstances themselves, how they're being handled, probably lack of sleep because of how this is going on, the fact that they had to keep this quiet for the last couple months while the investigation was going on. And it seems to me that the investigation was just revealed to them. I guess what was found in the investigation took this long, and in my mind, people are just finding out what all took place, you know? And that's kind of what the owner was alluding to. He was essentially saying things over the course of the last several months heated up. And I'm wondering if there's any chance at all, this also catered to how things were going with the locked trade market during the season. If the Boston Celtics had this looming within an investigation that maybe a lot of people actually knew about, and nobody was actually talking about, could have made it so that they weren't actually a trade partner in a lot of situations where otherwise they may have been. And you can just look at, maybe that's not the case, given the fact that they were able to sign Gallinari, and of course he got hurt. It's just a lot of stuff, We think about the injury to Robert Williams. They're facing a lot right now. And, you just think about how that could be why, Brad Stevens looked so heavy to me. He looked heavy, man. It's like it's one thing to be hit professionally, and for a lot of people, getting hit professionally is something that will stress you out to the point where you look sad. But then there's a different kind of sadness. And I've seen a certain look of my own eyes. I remember taking a picture in the day I got my heart broke. I took a picture of myself and I had a certain darkness in my eyes. That's what I saw in Brad Stevens. That's exactly what I saw in his eyes, y'all. Now, I'm not saying that something happened with somebody. I don't know nothing. I've been wrong many, many times as it pertains to my intuition of people when I see stuff in their eyes that I think I've seen in my own. But he's especially heavy about this situation, and I'm very hopeful that it wasn't his heart that got broken in this situation. That's all I'm saying. Very hopeful that it wasn't. So I'll leave it at that. I'm not going to say nothing else because I haven't heard anything about nothing else. So I hate to be the guy that puts a seed in the air that isn't there, but I also hate being the guy that lies about a feeling that I get. That's the feeling that I got. He's a little heavier in this situation than the owner was, it appeared to me. But they're all pretty angry, I'll tell you that. And they're all pretty angry and they're all pretty troubled. And I think they all handled it very well, man. I tell you the truth. If I was somebody on the other end watching them, as a fan, I feel a lot better about how the Celtics have handled the situation than I did before the press conference. I think they're dealing with something very, very serious. I think they're dealing with something very, very sad. And I think they're dealing with it the best way they know how. And I think they may have made some mistakes along the way. And I also don't think they leaked it. I think that's the difference between the press conference, before the press conference and afterward. Before it, I was thinking they were the ones leaking this and they're acting crazy about it. Now I think, nah, one of their enemies leaked that. Somebody that doesn't like them, or somebody that wanted to, expedite this process. Somebody who wanted to just, who knows? Somebody wanted this out. And I don't think it was the owner of the Boston Celtics. I do not believe that. That's something, because it didn't benefit them at all for this to be loud. No, in no way, shape, or form. Not even in as far as I could tell. Even in regards to trying to protect themselves legally, it didn't seem like some of the stuff that was going on was best out there in the way that it was to me. But I'm a layman, I'm far from a lawyer, I don't know. But at the same time, it's like certain things are pretty obvious, and it appeared they were reflecting on themselves poorly in the way they were handling it. Now I realize that probably was an attack. That was probably them getting ambushed in the same time this crisis is happening. So yeah, that's what tends to happen. That's what tends to happen when you're wounded. Sometimes your enemies are, oh yeah, let's go. This is a great time to go after them. Let's leak some stuff. Let's make this situation a lot worse. And so I don't know. I sense something like that might have happened to those guys. So yeah, man. Cautionary tale. What can you do? Now we wait to see what the details are, And we'll probably continue to bring this conversation to the forefront because it's the only thing anybody's talking about. And it will be more fallout. We'll know more and we'll talk about it. So prepare to be frustrated in me continuing to talk about this conversation because it's definitely going to be on here. And, it is what it is, man. We understand that Boston Celtics are definitely not the same team that they were last week. When you remove this type of coach from the situation and you bring this type of scandal to the situation, and you couple that with the injuries as we've already said, you can see the uphill battle that the Boston Celtics are going into the season with. And, the Eastern Conference is already much more competitive than it was last year, just based on what just happened with Cleveland and the draft, to be honest with you. So, I thought the Celtics were the favorite to come out of the East. I thought the acquisition of Malcolm Brogdon probably put them over the top if he's 100% healthy and everybody puts it all together. I still think they're going to get major pounds of flesh out of the league. They really are. They're going to eat, but they'll probably have long stretches where it just doesn't work out because of the fatigue of getting off to this type of start with this type of distraction looming over the team. You can just tell, like, you have to be a resilient bunch, and you got to have a special interim coach to be able to find excellence through this fog. And that is exactly what their team is shooting for. Not just, they're trying to be a good old team. No, they're a team that was in the finals last year and they have championship aspirations. So, and young pieces that are ready to win. So this is devastating for them, and it's bigger than basketball. So I can't really celebrate it as a Laker fan. It ain't fun for me. I'm not having no fun watching this. I would much rather the Celtics be on the other end of them, so we can have competitive battles like we always have. When they have scandals like this and they have a great team, it's like we're being cheated out of something like this. We're being cheated out of the opportunity at another Laker-Celtic rivalry, or however it goes. You just don't want to see it. You don't want to see it. And then the human aspect of it makes it a much more serious conversation than even that. When you consider families and children and people's hearts and all different types of stuff. It's just not. You look at those men up there who were trying to explain to us what it is that they could not explain, and you can clearly see this ain't fun for anybody. Nobody's having fun up there. So it is what it is, man. That's it. That's what I have to say. My name is BDL44. Thank you all for watching. Wow.